Loud noises.
I'm gonna hit you with that Cubana syndrome. Why am I so high? And why is this sound following me anywhere?
Havana syndrome.
Havana syndrome. Cubana.
I know, like we're gonna throw a
Havana's in Cuba.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of like a Cubano though is a sandwich made with like pork. You know.
Yeah. We hit you with that. Wait. What's the sandwich called? Isn't it just called a Cuban?
Maybe a Cuban. Yeah, I don't know.
Not a Cubano.
I've got some. I have some Cubanos that need to be smoked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're.
Hey, tell me this: are Cuban cigars? Like everyone, here's the thing. I think this is a myth. I don't think it's true, but people say. Well, I remember they said when I was in high school, they were like, "Yeah, my dad's got some Cubans. He might let us smoke them." And I'd be like, "Well, what's so special about Cubans?" And they'd say, "They've got weed in them."
Oh yeah,
and I don't think that's true.
It's
I think it's just that it's just the quality of the cigar. And the fact that there was everything from Cuba was banned, not just Cuban cigars.
Yeah. It's like it is very much so that like I'd say it's probably like 10 to 20% because they're good, and like 80 to 90% is because you want what you can't have. You know,
I will say that. I did have a Monte Carlo, and I did have, I can't remember the other one, but they were genuine Cubans, and they were good.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I've also had other cigars that were just as good, if not better, here in the U.S.
Right. And the big thing, too, is like cigar care and how you take care of them, because if you don't either smoke them right away or have them treated properly in a humidor, like they don't taste the same. So, yeah. If you bring a Cuban to Colorado and let this, dry air it out for even a week, not properly stored compared to just buying something like, anything off the shelf at your local cigar shop, it's going to be, totally different. Not good. And, speaking of wanting what you can't have and banning things, man, I've just been lately... I've been resisting the urge to buy a bunch of things that I'm afraid someday I won't be able to buy anymore.
Yeah, me too. You know what's also weird though? The amount of things I can have and will likely still be able to have that all of a sudden I'm kind of getting the desire for. And what we're talking about here, folks, is gats. Giggity gats. And if you hear a little clicking sound in the background, it's me practicing my dry fire with my dry fire mag, which you can find on the Mick and Pat Show store. Hey, actually, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, welcome to the Mick and Pat Show, folks. I'm Mick, and I'm sitting here with my best friend Pat, and one of them, as established from our previous episode. Which, that's the episode that you didn't upload on time, Pat, which is just kind of ironic. Maybe you didn't want people to know.
Oh, yeah. I was hiding the fact that
you said I was one of your best friends. Yeah. So, anyways,
like, it's so like he's my best friend, one of my best friends,
and I took that personally.
I'm his best friend, not one of my best friends.
Yeah, exactly. But
you put the caveat on there, it just really takes away from the power, and it just cuts deep.
What I'm saying is, welcome to the show. And at the makeitpasshow.com, you can see that we got the store up. And the store, it's kind of ugly right now because it's optimized for scrolling on a phone. So if you're looking at it on a computer or something, all the images aren't the same size. And it doesn't list them out, like there's no way to filter alphabetically and all that. I'm looking into like some Linktree and stuff. But anyways, if there's anything that you think you might like and you're in the market for, such as a good method for dry fire practice, like dry fire mag, which they make them for P320. Did you see that? They now make them for P320, Pat.
I saw that.
P320, Glock, PSA Dagger, Shadow Systems, Smith & Wesson M&Ps, I don't know if I'm forgetting any other ones. Oh, there's an XD one for one of the XD models. Anyways, they're great mags that allow you to practice dry fire without having to re-rack the slide. And I tell you what, my dry fire reps, my trigger control is insane now. I've gotten so much practice on it. And I freaking love the thing. And it's got a really nice haptic and audible feedback as you're clicking. But if there's other things you're looking for, like green dots, red dots, hunting optic or a low power variable optic, we got those.
I love it. Our shop looks like the shopping cart of a madman.
It's kind of organized.
No, it's organized. It's just, I love it. Like, I love that if you want some literature that is,
I do put the literature at top, so that way you know we're sophisticated.
Yeah, exactly. If you want some literature that's
get your Audible,
like it's not just action thriller. It's, it makes you think about the world, think about yourself at the same time. It makes you maybe have an existential moment wondering about these things. You can get that there. You can get some heavy hitting books that will make you question your psyche. Also,
you can get some dumb books too. I just put the fun, dumb fantasy sci-fi books there too.
Exactly. Also, if you're someone who, maybe you're a sweaty man and, here's the deal. In your car, in your bathroom, wherever you are at, if you got a little bit of situation going on, you never know when you're going to spill a latte on yourself. You never know when you're going to bleed on your dress shirt.
Like a nosebleed?
Yeah, a nosebleed or what? Anything could happen.
A hemorrhoid?
Hemorrhoid
through your suit pants?
Hemorrhoid through the back of your suit pants. Dude wipes will take care of it for you. I don't know if they're rated for getting blood out of fine, linen, because
I will say that my hemorrhoids have decreased since I switched to dude wipes.
There you go. You heard it here. You heard
the straight face that you just maintained. I really respect. I thought that would break you, dude. I was.
You heard it here, folks. Get your dude wipes. Get your. I mean, if you're in the morning, you like a little caffeine hit. Get your Nespresso. If you're into the wild world of manufacturing your own parts for little things, get your 3D printer filament resin here. Get it here.
Well, also that resin that I listed there is the best rated and reviewed resin for, sorry, not just the resin is the best for like models, miniatures, maintaining like very clear detail and having like durable, like as durable as like your green army men. They're also good for like mock-ups, but not like something that will be really used. The PLA, not resin, but like the actual filament that gets 3D printed. That is the best reviewed filaments for manufacturing parts.
All right.
Parts that might be under a lot of force and stress. Parts that might find themselves under a lot of sudden heat quickly from a explosive force within a tight chamber.
Cut this out.
No. This is all legal.
I know.
I'm just saying it's like it could be. It is highly rated for those things. Check them out on Amazon. I thought I had. I have a lot of stuff on there that I put on that is for just like your consumables at the range day. So get your IPSCA targets, get the tape to match them. Stuff like that. I know I put on like things that I thought were just like, I do go through that. Your batteries. A lot of people I know buy the optic or buy the flashlight.
Yeah.
And then they forget to buy backup batteries. Yeah. We got those listed.
Got to get your batteries. Is this a dentist light?
That is a light that I use. So think about this, like
a tiny dentist light.
No. It's a light. It's a lamp with a magnifying on it, right? And an O-ring light,
right? And
it mounts with a screw plate. You with like it
to a desk.
Friction mounts to a desk, and is great for doing anything like circuitry, painting, anything with like small tools, anything like that requires like magnification of fine details. And here's my thing. I assume that everybody else who's going to buy an optic or buy a flashlight or buy a training thing for their firearm is also a tinkerer. And you're going to have to tinker on those tiny little springs and screws.
This is true.
and it helps to have a magnification. I use it for painting. I really like to paint in my free time and relax, and it helps. And the light's very bright. I just pretty much use that actually as a desk lamp now. I just turn it on so I can see my keyboard at night when I'm typing.
Helps you find your,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
And if you're gonna buy stuff on Amazon anyways, and here's the thing that Amazon doesn't tell you. If you just go to our website and open up one of those links, whatever you do after opening up that link, whatever you buy, it does kick back to us. Amazon just sees it as like, yeah, they went through your link. They might have not bought that thing, but your link is what brought them to the platform, and here's a kickback for what they purchased. And so if you want to help out the show, please use our makeitpatshow.com store. And even if you don't buy any of those things, still supports us. Yeah. So we appreciate you. We love you, Ken. But with that, to the main thing of the episode, which our opening conversation is how bad we want to buy Gats, the clickety clacks. YouTube's also been censoring us hardcore. We apparently can't name anyone who's apparently running for president or used to be president without being banned from advertising. So if you look at some of our recent episodes, our numbers are super low because YouTube said, no, you can't advertise this. You can't promote the video. And they specifically point out in time codes when we said someone who might be affiliated with the name Uncle Joe or Orange Man. And apparently if we say those and try to promote our videos, that's a no-no. And we need an electoral advertising license. So all that said, also being careful with the firearm terminology because those are so unpopular on YouTube. But in Colorado yesterday, the actual House of Representatives voted 35-27 to pass the assault weapons ban bill. And so now it goes on to the Senate in Colorado, the Senate committee, where if it passes the Senate committee, it goes to the Senate. If it passes Senate, goes to Governor Poles' desk. If he doesn't do anything, it becomes law in 10 days. And so it's kind of a bummer, but what was cool was that there were quite a few Democrats in Colorado who are, and not saying you can't be a Democrat and a pro-gun owner, you definitely can, but historically the Democratic House of Representatives and senators in Colorado don't lean that way democratically. But they did say they voted no because of the amount of outpouring of emails and phone calls they got from their constituents saying, please do not vote for this bill. It will do nothing to reduce gun violence in our state. It will only make criminals out of legal gun owners and those who make their living selling guns legally and under the law. And I think it was 4 or 5 Democrat House of Representatives in Colorado who voted against the party line against the bill, which I thought was great.
Yeah, in this day and age, typically your people are riding that party line. They're going to be voting, based off of what one side or the other is doing. They're just going to fall in line, and so that's interesting to see that, and we'll see where it pans out to and what becomes of it.
Yeah, and I really want to buy more.
I know.
Get-itty gats.
Oh yeah, it's and I think that might be the biggest mistake they're making is that let's say you said it's those 10 days that it sits on Polis's desk. If it gets there, will be record sales.
Oh yeah. Everything will be sold out online.
Yeah.
And also, if you don't know, PSA, Palmetto State Armory, true freaking patriots, they have something labeled in their webpage as a stealth AR-15 lower. I don't know what the stealth part is other than just identifying it for a searchable thing on their website. But it is a specific lower, just it's not like there's still a serial number on it. You know what I mean? It's not like there's anything sneaky about it.
It's all above board.
Yeah. All it is a lower, which is the serialized firearm of an AR. And it's just on discount. And apparently they've said that this is for states that are facing the gun ban laws, so you can quickly just type in stealth lower on PSA or on Google. When it pops up, it's a discounted cheap lower. It's like, I think $25, $30.
All right.
That's the gun part. That's the part you won't be able to buy in Colorado anymore if this law passes. If you buy it now, the ATF and the, essentially constitutional, not constitution, but like the Supreme Court law and all that has ruled like that's the gun. And whatever it's classified at time of manufacturing is what it is. And you buying the upper receiver and a barrel and a stock and a grip does not change its classification afterwards.
Right.
So you buy it now before the ban, and you can build it as you see fit and at your financial convenience
in the future
after the ban. And by build it, I simply mean you're taking parts not to upgrade or convert it, but you're just taking parts in order to help it run safely in operation. Because otherwise it'd be very unsafe to just jam a mag in there in a lower and start walking around pointing it.
It's not going to work out.
Yeah, it's not going to work out. But anyways, all that said, still hope in this state. I don't want to leave it. I don't plan on leaving it. I would hate to leave it.
So you got to get it now, and then you'll be all set up for whatever comes your way.
Yeah.
And, something crazy happened yesterday or a couple days ago, which was something that's been going on for a long time. But now it happened kind of out in the open. And what I'm talking about is, Iran rocketed into Israel. And
I'm curious, out of my ignorance, what do you mean that it's now in the open?
Right. So,
we've talked about this weekly now at this point for probably the last couple months. The Israel-Hamas conflict with Iran using Hamas and other agents as proxies.
Right.
And I'm curious to hear how this is different.
Right. I would say it's from my point of view and my understanding, I don't think it's actually any different. It's just because everything has been a proxy, just like how, and I think we mess up in our, even in our U.S. history, how we teach kids about the Korean War and then the Vietnam War. Those weren't wars necessarily against Korea or Vietnam as much as those were wars against the ideology of communism and wars against China, right? And so, and the same could be said about lots of, you've probably heard the Iraq-Afghanistan war, global war on terror. Lots of people say, oh, this is all about oil. It's all about oil. And for a big part of it is these are, it's a proxy, war for control in a region for a resource. And so taking a big, perspective on these things, when someone like a group like Hamas that carries out an attack, or a group like ISIS or different groups, wars are expensive and wars take a lot of money and attacks take a lot of money. And so typically these small groups have somebody backing them. And the Hamas and Hezbollah have been, we've known, and everybody knows that they're backed by Iran, and Iran is a fan of what these groups do. But now to openly and directly attack a country, it's no more proxy. It's not doing a kind of secretive workaround where they can deny it, and the U.S. does stuff too, where, and lots of countries do stuff where something happens and they're able to deny it was their involvement. Like, for instance, like Bay of Pigs, right? Like,
sure. Well, kind of.
Well, but like for the goal of Bay of Pigs was we took a bunch of, Cuban nationalists and then had them, trained up and then sent them over. And it was supposed to be just, and it was a disaster situation. But the thing was, the U.S. was supposed to have basically plausible deniability that they were involved in it, even though we brought them over, trained them, and then took them back to overthrow Castro. We didn't put American boots on the ground, technically.
See, Call of Duty would have me believe that we did have a squad detachment of SOF guys on the ground.
In Black Ops 2 or whatever.
Yeah, and well, I think it was just Black Ops.
Black Ops, yeah. And that's what's the name of the game? Black Ops.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Shit, I walked into that one.
And so, that's what the point I'm getting to is,
Well, and I think even more to your point, Israel denies they didn't even say they denied that they were a part of it. They just had no comment about the Iran embassy explosion in Syria.
That killed 2 generals.
And there's still no way that we could prove it was Israel.
Right.
Like, no one, not that I care, but and not that I feel bad about those guys, meeting their fate. But it's one of those things of like, there is no denying that Iran fired, what was it? At the end of the count, it was like up to 1,000 drones.
I think it was
drones and missiles.
It was less, but it was a lot.
I knew it went over 200 in the first hour.
Yeah,
is what I heard. Like it was over 200 explosive drones and missiles in the first hour that were fired at the Iron Dome.
It was a lot, and it's a direct attack, open. It's obvious it came from people in power, and Iran said attack them, right? And so now we're at an interesting point in this. The conflict that has been going on there has been, we've heard a lot about Hamas, and Hamas has been probably like the main group anybody's heard of who's been involved right now in fighting in Gaza. But this basically the whole time this war in Gaza has been going on, there's also been a group in Lebanon, Hezbollah, rocketing over into Israel on the northern side of Israel. And both these groups funded by,
Hezbollah is technically in the West Bank, right? Is that the Gazan West Bank front when we say West Bank?
So West Bank, and it's West Bank refers to the western bank of the Jordan River.
Oh,
so that's can be the
Israel.
So you have the Mediterranean on the furthest west side, but
it's not that West Bank,
right? The West Bank on the Jordan River splits the border of Jordan and Israel.
Yeah.
But the West Bank is Palestine. That's like most Palestinians live in the West Bank on the east side of Israel. But there hasn't been a lot of fighting or anything
on the West Bank.
In the West Bank, yeah. And
lately,
right, and usually and there hasn't been like full scale war going on. There's always little flare ups and conflicts, but they kind of can pop up. But on the northern border, which is the Golan Heights, so north of the Sea of Tiberias or Sea of Galilee, same thing is where the Golan Heights are, which that's where Israel and Lebanon and Syria have been kind of jockeying for control and power over years, and it's kind of a no man's land up there. And so that's where Hezbollah from Lebanon has been rocketing into the Galilean area in the north, and then on the west coast, kind of southwest coast is where Gaza is, and that's where that fighting's been going on. There's been more at play than just Gaza happening. There's been, so Hamas is kind of like small potatoes comparatively to Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is pretty big organization with lots of power.
Hezbollah is essentially in charge of the West Bank, right?
No, they're only Hezbollah is not in Israel. They're in Lebanon to the north.
Sorry, not in Israel. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Who's in Jordan? Is it Hamas? That's
Jordan really doesn't have a specific terrorist group that has control, like
governmental control, okay.
Right? Like how Hamas has governmental control in the West Bank. Mm-hmm. Hezbollah has heavy governmental influence
in Lebanon. Okay.
And then in Jordan kind of stays as middle of the road as they can. They are kind of the Switzerland of the area, and not because of the fact that they share this border directly with Israel, and then they share a border directly with the rest of the Middle East. They're kind of this little tiny buffer zone that whatever crap happens, is in their backyard, and so they got to deal with it. So, not a lot of attacks come from Jordan. In the past, there have been wars.
I remember
the 7-Day War and stuff.
Yeah, the 7-Day War was the big one that I was thinking of, which is why I was kind of confused geographically. But that okay, all right. So your explanation totally tracks with me. But wasn't there an Iran-Israel conflict that bloomed into a brief war in the 70s, 80s or something like that? I'm trying to remember, because this isn't the first time it's been like, that's Iran shooting missiles at Israel shooting back. Smoke break. Hey, Ken, it's Mick, and I've got something important to talk about. We all hope we never find ourselves in a self-defense situation, but life's unpredictable. Enter the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer, an actual credible law firm you can put on retainer for your self-defense needs. For just $35 a month, you get national coverage in all 50 states for criminal and civil legal representation in self-defense situations, complete with a 24/7, 365 toll-free emergency line. That's real legal support when you need it most. What's in the package? Bail bonds, scene cleanup, firearm replacement, even mental health counseling. Plus, 0 fees for a laundry list of defense-related costs like expert witnesses. So support the show and get yourself some peace of mind. Click the link in our show notes or visit our sponsors page to sign up for the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer.
Hey folks, Pat here. If you're like Mick and I, you're a fan of classic tales like Lonesome Dove, Blood Meridian, The Three-Body Problem, and Steinbeck's East of Eden. With Audible, you can dive into these epic stories anytime, anywhere. Sign up for a free month, and your first audiobook is on the house. To start your free trial and support our show, click the link in the show notes or swing by the sponsors page on our website.
Want an awesome website for your podcast? Check out Podpage. We use it for the Mick and Pat show, and it's a game changer. Set it up in minutes, no coding needed. Support the show by using our link to get started. Your podcast deserves a home as great as ours. Podpage, the one-stop solution.
Right. Trying to think specifically there, because there's been so much, turmoil for so many years with different infighting and stuff. But, because Iran geographically is not located that closely to Israel in comparison. They have a pretty big buffer. They've got, they have Jordan and Iraq and kind of Syria on the north that is a buffer zone between the countries. So that's why like the attack on Israel didn't come straight out of Iran. It came out of their bases that they have in other countries, and so and Iran has just strong influence in spots like Syria where they're able to get closer in. And so, where Hamas is kind of small potatoes compared to Hezbollah's real small potatoes compared to the country of Iran. Right. And so now this is just a even greater escalation in the situation. And so during this rocketing, there was multiple countries that helped shoot all these rockets out of the sky, and only a handful.
What is the RAF? I saw that being mentioned a lot.
The RAF.
It said with the help of the U.S. and the RAF, the Iron Dome managed to keep everything from actually landing on the ground.
I don't know what that acronym stands for right there. It's too many acronyms to keep track of out there in the
jail.
world.
Take him to jail. All right, I'll look it up.
Look up that one real quick, because So, Israel's Iron Dome system is super capable and powerful, but there was other countries that were helping out with putting all these rockets down, and only a handful made landfall. And of those, there was no reported casualties.
Royal Air Force, Britain.
Oh, Royal Air Force. Okay. Yeah, because it was Brits. I think France might have been helping out too.
Our 10 British listeners like, oh, what the fuck, mate?
Yeah. So, okay, so yes, but Israel's getting a lot of help, and I think it's incredible that no casualties happened. Now, I'll say, let me rephrase too, no casualties were reported.
Sure.
Because one thing is, if you look at the map where all the rockets came in, going back to where we were talking about the West Bank, there was a lot of rockets coming in kind of into the West Bank, into Palestine, which is where, and so I wonder if, and I don't know, we'll see too, where there could have been some Palestinian families that got smoked by the Iranian rockets that Israel's not reporting on, right? So some of that could have happened, but for the most part, for from the reports, no reported casualties is pretty incredible. It's estimated that $1 billion was spent to defend that attack, and so
that's insane.
Talking about the expense of war, where this only happened for a few hours. It wasn't like a multiple day or week barrage. So if Iran's able to continue this kind of keep their weapons payloads at, keep their stocks up, probably via, Russia, China, who and if China's supplying these things, then they have a serious amount of firepower they can keep hucking over. This could be, sort of a siege type situation where if they keep doing something like this, you could bleed out the coffers pretty fast on how much that war could cost.
But you got to think, how deep are the pockets of, how deep does the pocket of missiles go? How deep does the pocket of, bomb drills? Right. Yes, it costs $1 billion to deter it. How much did it cost to get those things there to fire?
Yes, and I was trying to look that up, and nobody out there, I couldn't find any good estimations on it. I bet it was considerably cheaper, just to
I don't know. I think about the Russian, Russia's has to manufacture, build them, ship them to Iran. Iran has to ship them into
it's big cost,
feasible.
For sure.
And I mean, it's probably cheaper than $1 billion.
Right.
But those nations also don't have just $1 billion to wax over one night like the U.S., Israel, and England do.
Right, exactly.
I still say England. I know it's the UK.
Yeah.
Get over it. Come over here and make me... come over here and make me call you the UK. But anyways, all that said, I did find it fascinating. I do always love to watch videos of the Iron Dome at work.
It's incredible.
It's it is one of those things that feels like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. And when you see stuff in some sci-fi movies that are just oh yeah, look at this grid protecting the whole globe from this, alien invasion. And some people are yeah, whatever. I'm nah, dog, that could, you give us 500 years, I'm sure we'll have some kind of space grid shooting asteroids and junk out of the out of orbit before it gets too close.
What's the one from Star Trek called?
I don't
Star
know.
Trek has one. It's
I was just thinking of the one in Ender's Game. I just remember that they had that Star Wars, the space grid. But anyways, it's just mesmerizing to me to see that that system at work and working so efficiently. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? If you could really, without, no consequence, I'm not going to get you, gotcha. What is your speculation going forward on this?
On on what's going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, you and I, we've realized you and I watch just the same stuff. YouTube just feeds us the same thing at the same time. And so I'm just wondering, based off of what we've watched, what's your spec?
When that's where we spoke when Hamas attacked Israel back in October. We came on and talked about it, and Israel went into Gaza, and they're still fighting in there, right? And it was one of those things where I was like, I was probably done in like 3 days or 3 weeks, you know. But I was wildly wrong on that one, right? And so,
do you remember what my spec was? My sign-off spec with that was it will be a proxy thing until Iran's name is written on the shit they fire over.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll start seeing nations saddle up.
Oh, yeah. And so that's where...
I'm not as confident about that now. But I still... I mean, Iran finally did it. Signed with love. And
they sent it in. And
who knows what's going to happen now, dude.
They took the next steps, and Israel isn't really one to back down from too many fights, and they don't have to typically because they have the backing of
big boys,
the big superpowers, particularly USA. But what's happened now is, there's reports that Uncle Joe called Netanyahu and he said, "Take the win," meaning, that they were able to defend themselves from this. Nobody died, take the win, move forward, without, retaliation. And also, I think you may have been referring to take the win, maybe, of those two generals getting taken out or not,
getting smoked.
Whether or not Israel's a part of that or not.
Yeah.
But then the other thing that old Joe said was the U.S. will not support Israel in an attack of Iran. So,
let's see if that wins many votes.
Right. And so, and I think, and I, to be more specific about what he said, it was more of like we're not putting boots on the ground with you. Right. And, so
let's be real. That's complete malarkey. If it stopped being an Iran-Israel thing, if this went from Iran, like let's say Israel retaliates again, or they don't, and Iran and Pakistan hop in on it, and then it's Iran, Pakistan, and a little bit of some of the other guys, and maybe a little bit of RU. Without a doubt, America's like, all right, I ain't missing out on an opportunity to skin my knees up in this game.
And that's what the one thing we did talk about when this whole thing started in October was, we talked about how the big industrial complex that makes a lot of money off warfare was, wetting their britches in a good way, in excitement at the fact that they were about to have a lot of money made.
I bought Raytheon and Lockheed.
Yeah.
Sue me, baby.
And so
I foresaw the future.
Yeah. Because, they're getting to fire it all up. And so between Ukraine war and then now, what's escalating in the Middle East, we have money's going to drive it. And so, and Israel does have some form or right to, defend and protect themselves. Now, as far as what does retaliatory action look like to are they going to do are soldiers going to go invade Iran, right? That's a tall order.
I feel like Israel just ain't got that kind of force.
But they do have the ability to fly a jet over there and drop something, right? So there's what are they going to do? I honestly have no idea, but I do think it's a hot situation. The fuse is not lit, but the fuse is it's kind of, you ever light a firecracker and it's just that moment right before, the tip of the fuse is burning, but it hasn't gone yet. It's just starting to smolder, and it's just about to, the lighter's up against it. I think we're right. It feels like we're right there on the next thing, coming through.
I have a movie that I'm actually going to send you to watch, so that way you can watch it and we can discuss it. It probably won't need to be a Bruising Reviews, because I do think you will just absolutely love it, and it's a 2 thumbs up for me for the movie. And it's called By Dawn's Early Light, and it was a movie that HBO made about Russia-U.S. nukes and like the whole like trying to stop it before it goes any further.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that makes the movie terrifying is that you see the U.S. government and what is still alive of it attempting to communicate with all of their forces and bombers in the sky, communicate with the Russian president. And you realize that this is not the firecracker going off, that these first 2-3 dozen nukes that have gone off across each country is just the fuse. And that this whole thing is designed so that way these things blow up and like these first cities and stuff get hit in order to buy time for them to come to a ceasefire. And the whole thing is like this. I think a lot of people think like, oh, we gotta stop it before it blows up. It's like no. If the fuse gets lit, we're taking casualties. And like serious casualties. If it blows up, it's game over. There is no like, oh, it blew up. Damn, that sucked. Well, let's stop another one from blowing up. Like if it blows up, we're talking Holocaust of humanity levels. But anyways, one thing I will bet on is that the lyrics to War Pig ring true right now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I guarantee you there are generals gathered in their masses, and you know that there are for sure machines that are turning, ready to keep on rolling. And I don't know, man, dude. It's weird when like in this environment that song just screams in my head. Like it's just so, it feels so real right now. But anyways, pretty crazy stuff. I also sent you this video. Who's it? I can't remember the org that it was by. It's by like that Christian news organization,
CBN.
Yeah, but like that Arab Lebanese leader. Sorry, that Christian Arab Lebanese leader was assassinated by Hezbollah, which I thought was kind of a little like, keep your eyes on the prize, I guess. Like, aren't you guys trying to focus on Israel? So why go after this dude in Lebanon and potentially get like a Lebanon anti-Hezbollah rivaling going up?
Right. Well, I think, you know,
again, it just seems weird. It seems kind of like a F you, definitely F you. You're cool.
Like,
you know what I mean? Like,
seems like bad strategy.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that like, that's why a lot of these groups never have good successes, because they are ideologically driven in so many cases versus strategically driven, that they shoot themselves in the foot that way. But at the same time, you have to think of the motives, you know, where for groups like Hezbollah, they're not just bound to a nationality or like, you know, a common goal that is, you know, to just like, you know, unite their country or whatever. There are lots of goals, you know, Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, you know. The goal is in their mind and in their deepest hope is to reestablish the caliphate that once was over. You know, the Middle Eastern world was once the pinnacle of the earth. It was where the universities were, where it was like technology was coming out of, you know, like Ottoman Empire type stuff, where they were super powerful. And as the caliphate, you know, is also an oligarchy, which, you know, is driven by religious motives as well. And so, you know, part of their mandate is not just to be a good Lebanese person or a good Syrian or a good, you know, whatever your country is called these days. You know, they're driven, lots of, you know, Muslim extremists are driven by an ideology that is to reestablish Islamic caliphate, Islamic ruling over all around them. And so when you have these Christians who stand against the tenets and the beliefs of these Muslims, they are a threat. In Lebanon, there, you know, kind of recently too, there's been sort of while you have like stricter Sharia law coming into place, you've also had more people rebelling, like, you know, women, like it's just crazy. Like when in Lebanon, you've had women in the street, like uncovering their heads, which is a big no-no. And but,
my God, what?
I know, right? But like gathering. So what's, first of all, like, and it's so for us, it's like so hard to understand that this is crazy. But like this is beyond.
I know what you mean, though.
But
I saw like the mass female protests of like tearing their hijabs off.
Yep. And then
I was like, damn.
But to take it even further, like
women got more cojones than me,
and they're not allowed to be. So in some cases, like, you know, culturally not allowed to be out without a man, not allowed to do this. But also, there's been women gathering and worshiping, like Christians worshiping Jesus in the streets.
Yeah,
and that
big no
stands in the face and flies in the face of what Sharia law, you know, stands for. And so, yeah, you know, this guy who got assassinated, I don't know if it's the same guy or not, but there's been a couple Christian leaders over there who they've been long before this, they've been targeted. They've been jailed. Like, it's been, you know, something that's been going on where Christian leaders have been being jailed or tortured or, you know, disappeared and different things like that. And so, it feels like this is kind of, you know, they're being emboldened on every front, right? And because of the lack of, you know, good show of force from the powers that have kept them at bay, they're getting emboldened all over. That's what you see. That's what you see throughout the Middle Eastern world, and within the, you know, where you see that video of like 1 million people standing in the street in Yemen, like chanting "Death to America."
Oh yeah,
it's like holy smokes! Like, it's just like very emboldened. Like,
did you see the one in New York and Chicago that had like, it was like 200,000 people chanting "Death to America," and they explained why. Like, the speaker literally explained why we chant "Death to America," and then everyone started chanting "Death to America."
And
crazy.
And guess what? You get to.
Yeah, I love my country because you could do that.
You get to,
like, no one comes to execute you.
Yeah, we don't mow you down. Yeah. You know, try that. Try doing the opposite. Try burning their flags in their streets. Try speaking out against them, speaking out against oppression. See what happens. It doesn't end as well for you because we've got a pretty good system here, and we have amendments to our Constitution, and those amendments help keep us safe.
True. True.
And so, you know, the biggest ones we always talk about, you always in the news, First Amendment, freedom of speech, like getting to, you know, rally, you know, there's a right to protest, a right to gather, and a right to say what you will without being, you know, persecuted for it legally. Now, there do social consequences do come, but then Second Amendment allows you to protect that First Amendment right by having arms, you know. And then we have another one that we just don't talk about very often, and it's not in the news a lot because it feels actually really outdated, as far as the way we learned about it in school. And that's the Fourth Amendment, right?
Well, Pat, what is that? I remember in school the First Amendment is freedom of speech and religion and freedom of the press. Weird that they put it all in one. I really think those should have been the first, like, freedom of speech, religion, that's kind of the same thing. Freedom of the press feels like that should have just been its own amendment. Kind of weird that it was wrapped in all of them in that first one. But anyways, doesn't really matter. Second Amendment, though, we all know that one. But I don't think many people know anyone after the second.
Right.
Maybe like the 14th, the Fifth Amendment, right to not, like, criminalize yourself, essentially. But go ahead, tell us.
Yeah, and so, you know, and then, you know, I did skip over the Third Amendment, you know, that, like, you know, soldiers can't come use your house, right?
Yeah, that's not relevant yet.
Right. And I'd say, like, at the same time, though, the Third Amendment might fall into this conversation too, as far as, you know, what was the intent of the writing, and the Fourth Amendment being the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, It shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons and the things to be seized. And so, the most familiar we'd be with the Fourth Amendment, right, would be like, whenever someone in the TV shows, the cops come to the door and it opens the door, and then the cop's like, "Can we come in?" And they're like, "Do you have a warrant?" And they're like, "No." They're like, "Well, then get out of here." And they shut the door, right? And that's about it, right? And so, yeah, you got to have a warrant to, be able to search and seize things from people, and supported by this oath and affirmation, so you have to have a case built around it. But what I think is interesting and what we're shifting into in this new age is that, like, I don't carry around my, like, official documents in paper form with me. I don't carry around, like...
Papers, please.
Yeah, exactly. Do
you wish to enter Wisconsin?
And I don't carry, like, a gold ring that is like a nest egg, or like a chain around my neck, or a very fancy watch that, like, is where back in the day, like, if you didn't have a bank, you had to keep your wealth, like, with you, or on you, so if you're traveling, right, whatever. So, like, these sorts of things, like, now what is that? I don't know. Where's your wealth? Maybe it's in cryptocurrency.
Bitcoin.
Maybe
it's in my thumb drive.
Exactly. And, so these papers and personal effects, I think that we are moving into such a digital age that the Fourth Amendment may be under much greater threat than any of us are aware of, which is why also it may be advantageous for everybody to yelp and holler about the First and Second Amendment and not really be too concerned about the fourth one.
Well, and, like, here's my thing is, like, this is one of those things where you're gonna find people struggling with their arguments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I'm just calling a spade how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
You will find people who are pro Second Amendment, pro First Amendment, with the mentality that the Founding Fathers knew firearms and war would evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And they wrote the Second Amendment because they truly believed no matter how it evolved, the man, like the United States citizen, and I'm not going to say man because women, children should have a right to self-defense with equal or greater force.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying, like, you need your F-15, right? I'm just saying, or like a child needs, I'm not saying a kid needs, like you need to be training your kids on an AR-15, or a 12 gauge, whatever. I'm just saying that the fact that we have that right, and that your child can have access to that in case of an emergency or something to defend themselves, is legitimately, I think, a thought through mentality of the Second Amendment. Of, like, families will have the ability to defend this nation and themselves from any kind of tyranny. Same thing with the First Amendment. No matter how wide this country grows, if you're a member of the press in California and you hike your butt over to Washington, D.C., you have the same rights as any press member of D.C.
And to speak out against,
and to speak against it, yeah. Especially if you, and, like, that's the whole point of, like, keeping it from becoming a land governed by a removed authority. Like, you have the right to say, "Hey, DC, you're, like, what's going on here negatively affects us out here," and it's part of my freedom to speak against it. And it's part of my freedom to get, like, transparent access to the truth. But I've seen some of those people waver on this Fourth Amendment and its ultimate, like, standing of, like, essentially the government's ability to search and seize on things that, the founding fathers couldn't imagine would come into existence.
Right.
Such as the internet.
In their wildest dreams.
Mm-hmm. Such as a virtual folder with, your financial records or whatever. Mm-hmm. And all that said, like, there's the other side too, people who are like staunchly like, no, the Fourth Amendment applies to everything. Mm-hmm. Like, whatever is my possession, that goes into my email. Mm-hmm. That goes into my, privacy and like what I'm like purchasing on the internet. Mm-hmm. But like the Second Amendment was for muskets and cannons.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so all I'm saying is like, we have people on both sides and you got to take it at its core. You can't have one or the other. Mm-hmm. And like, do I struggle because I try to figure out like, what's public domain and what is in like the realm of like the government's authority, such as like this ban on TikTok that's being, going into vote and stuff like that and being proposed, and people in support it or against it. And I truly believe that when it comes to those things, it is muddy ground. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to decide like, well, that's a company and you're banning it from like the citizens to have access to it because you're essentially banning it from being like distributed in the U.S., which is, I think, dangerous because then you start getting into, where does it stop? Once you have that permission to do so, where does it stop in, when do they even have to start telling us? And
I think the TikTok ban is actually interesting because it goes both ways. Mm-hmm. That is it a, like right now it's widely known like TikTok is, a Chinese owned,
application
and that basically they have all of our information and they're tracking it and manipulating, who sees what and how much of what is seen.
I don't have it on my phone after it came out that it literally can read your bank statement off of your phone.
Right. Because when you say yes to them, when you click the I agree button, it has access to all your stuff, not just on that app. And so what's interesting too about the TikTok ban is, one camp could definitely be in the stance of saying, this is against my, my freedoms to have this and use it. But a ban on TikTok might actually be a protection of your
privacy,
of your Fourth Amendment rights, right?
Exactly.
So,
could be, it's a weird one
because that's where there's guys listening to General Robert Spalding. He was a stealth bomber pilot, and then he's held all sorts of like pretty big positions, especially like he's not that old, and he's been in a lot of bigwig positions, and right now he's involved in U.S.-China relations, and he supports the TikTok ban. But he also, at the same time, he wants the Patriot Act to be repealed.
Yeah.
And so, because I think he stands on that side of saying, like, the TikTok ban is for protection of the citizen and their privacy, and then, and just like repealing the Patriot Act is for, like, protection of, like, the privacy of the citizen. And so, we're in such an interesting, modern age where basically everything anybody needs to know about you is digital. There's like, honestly, like nobody has anything in their house that I like. If I was criminally minded and wanted to get the biggest bang for my buck, take the most opportunity to take advantage of somebody, I'm not going in their house. Like, I don't want your IKEA furniture. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't even want your PS5 or, like whatever. Like, I want that Bitcoin wallet, and I want to take it with a keystroke tracker instead of having to risk myself coming over, in your house. And so, and that's kind of citizen to citizen stuff. But then we move into, the actual, the intent of the Fourth Amendment being, protection from government authorities abusing their powers over you. And things like the NSA, Patriot Act, and then those sorts of, what's his name? The guy who had to go to Russia.
Snowden.
Snowden stuff, and kind of how much he revealed about how much privacy we don't have, right?
Yeah.
it's like, I don't even think you have a Fourth Amendment right anymore because
the current policy is in place.
Policy is not in place to protect your digital stuff, and we've, there's a lot of you can get very quickly into like conspiracy theory stuff out there, or like quickly, but also like there is like federal government agencies that are like using, people's digital footprints to almost like entrap them and I don't know. I'm not educated enough to even know like how they do it. I just know they do it. Right.
Well, I mean, it goes into like what, we've talked about this off the air, but the recent whole FISA violations brought to light by the FBI. The FBI had 2.5 million FISA violations. I can't remember the specific time frame for those. Mm-hmm. But for those who don't know what FISA is essentially the software and database that keeps track of, as best as I understand it from when I used it in law enforcement and did the training on it. It's the ability to look up someone. And you essentially agree that you're not just going to use the FISA records for finding someone and just like out of like, oh, well, I'm going to look at this individual for the sake of looking at them, or like someone saying like, hey, would you do me a favor and look up this person? Like it all comes under like reasonable like investigation. Like again, the Fourth Amendment cause of like reasonable doubt.
And you were saying for how long, you don't know how long they've been like tracking that.
Well, I don't know what the million
time,
violation occurred.
But if they did one a day, that would have taken 7,000 years.
Yeah.
So
no, it's
like,
quite a bit. Yeah.
So whether like whatever, like it's like they're doing it a lot, right?
Yeah. And these are the ones they got caught on. And it was kind of disappointing because the GOP Speaker of the House was really grilling the FBI about it, and then he flipped on it after a briefing by the FBI and said, "Oh no, the FISA, like this, there's a lot of value to the FISA," and he voted to pass, like support it again, and not reinstate it, but like just again approve it for remaining in place. And as did a lot of other House representatives. And that was kind of a shame because this is a crime, and this is a crime that, like, when I did my training, it's a federal crime, and you could lose your job as a law enforcement officer and face like criminal consequences and prosecution. And to see like the FBI is just getting off scot-free doing that and abusing it is pretty disappointing to me. That's a misuse of a very powerful tool that needs to exist. We need the ability to look up criminal records and understand reasonable doubt for search and seizure or a warrant on an individual when we're going to like arrest them. It's not warranted to misuse that to just haphazardly just look up people and see like, can we like kind of entrap this person to build a case against them? You know what I mean? Like that's what's the term? It begins with an M. Whatever. It's inappropriate, and it's a misuse of the authority. And it's, I don't know, it just really kind of broke my heart to see that the GOP speaker flipped on it after a briefing, and part of me wonders if they're like, here's your FISA record. Right. You know what I mean? Like they kind of like bullied him into it. I'm not sure, but it's definitely something that I wish hadn't passed. And because I think it's a time to take a reevaluation at the Patriot Act and those kind of policies that we have in place at a federal level. And I think maybe there was a case for the Patriot Act after 9/11 for a time. But that's also how I feel about the ATF. Maybe there was a time that the ATF made sense as an organization. I don't necessarily think they fit the time now. Right. Just due to like, when's the last time the ATF really made a dent in cartel you know, with same. I mean, you could DA is a little bit different, but the same thing with the DA is like the DEA. When's the last time you heard of the DEA really sticking it to the cartel? Pablo,
right?
You know,
yeah, years ago, exactly. And these things have gotten so. These organizations have just gotten so fat that they're ineffective, and you know the same argument can be made. You know, like I was saying, that all of our personal stuff is on a digital, you know, is in a digital world. All the bad guys too, all their stuff is in a digital world too, and lots of those guys are actually, they get off the digital world because they know that it's so risky too. Yeah, because they'll be found. But the you know, so that there does have to be some ability to you know monitor evidence. Or find or compile evidence. You know, to there's people out there with nefarious activities and with big bad plans and little bad plans, and so yeah. But how do people keep their privacies? How do we in a world
protect,
where
how do we protect the law-abiding good person and maintain their privacy?
Especially if, you know, okay, let's say like right now all the people in a government organization in place are, you know, they have these extreme powers and they use them for good and they use them to hunt down people they should, you know, that's great. Okay, but then what happens if after, say, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you kind of have a regime shift where you have, you know, super ideologically driven people slowly get into power throughout a government organization, and higher up through there only people who are like-minded like them, to the point where you just have, you know, black hats and right. And so and
I mean, I think you could make that case, and I think you kind of were alluding to, but you could make that case right now. Like one of the things mentioned when the head of the FBI was speaking before the House of Representatives was like, why are you tracking people buying Bibles?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like, seems pretty sus and pretty seems like a misuse. Like, is the is the majority of the people buying Bibles a threat to our society? I certainly would challenge, if you're going to make that case, how about people buying Quran, Torahs? How about, like, you know, there's about people buying anarchists.
Like, I was just saying, like, you know, I don't know.
It's one of those things that I'm just like, definitely seems like a misuse of that monitoring. You know what I mean? So all that said, though, it's a wild world. I'm not going to claim to know the answer of the balance, right? But I do think, like, we need, like, that's kind of the reason why we elect our officials, is to, you know, represent us for our best interests. And I definitely have lost faith in some of our representatives in the House and in Congress, that they are representing us appropriately with our best interests. Seems like some of them are honestly just rolling over to, you know, either intimidation or power, and maintaining the status quo of, like, you know, a violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Definitely. And so, yeah, I think it's one of those things that just isn't on our radar in the same way that other things might be. And it's funny, I'm not getting a TikTok account anytime soon. I've never had one, so if they ban it, it's not going to affect me too much. But it might be a good thing if they get rid of it. I don't know. Yeah,
I have a couple buddies that I've been friends with and kind of been mentoring, and I make fun of them for their amount of time spent on TikTok.
Oh yeah, because the thing I learned today was that, you know, the Chinese version of TikTok, they have one over there. It's just different, and it only allows you on for 40 minutes a day. Yeah, and then it shuts you off.
And it algorithmically rewards, like, academic content in it,
instead of 35-year-old men doing dances.
Yeah, it punishes that kind of content in China. Yeah, it does not show it as often. It kind of shadow bans it. Whereas here in the U.S., like, the most prolific content on TikTok is the most, like, brain melting, just useless waste time content.
And then the bigger scary part of that is that it's not just happening because people want to watch that. It's also happening because it's being fed on purpose, you know, and rewarded.
It's their algorithm
on this algorithm. Yeah, it's super wild, man. I don't know what will come of it with like a ban on this thing or whatever. And actually, it's actually not even really a true ban as much as it's a divestment of the company to basically show what they're doing with it and how they use it, and then, you know, to put regulatory things on it. And so we'll see if anything happens with that. But I don't have a digital wallet. I guess, or do I? Because I have it's like,
you have a crypto wallet?
Well, no, but I don't have all my money in cash.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, and from that perspective,
the bank doesn't have all my money in cash either.
Oh no, dude, that's just a number saying how much the bank has already loaned out from you. I do have a crypto wallet, but I keep I keep about 50% of my crypto investments in, just for the sake of like, more than anything, it's a protection against myself from selling it.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean, and just like holding on to it. But it's also just good for the sake of like making sure it's not as accessible by people with malicious intent. And I'll tell you this, like the amount of fake emails I have trying to spam me into giving them like access to my, you know, Coinbase account is pretty high.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I've been getting it for also my brokerages and like, you know, my investment funds. And like, you got to be really careful right now in the digital age, because there are a lot of bad actors who will pose as your brokerage or your, you know, your digital crypto account, you know, provider. And just for the sake of like you signing in on a bad link and then them getting that information.
And once it's gone,
dude.
Like it's gone to it. You don't know where it went, but it's not in the country anymore.
Yep, exactly.
It's out of here. It's so crazy.
But anyways, good shit, bro. Anything else that you got? Final words? I think this was good stuff.
Yeah. No, I think that it's yet to be seen what's going to happen with, you know, the Israel-Iran stuff. What's interesting too is I've watched a lot of, you know, Christians, like, you know, who have been, there's a lot of loud Christians about Israel in general all the time, but I've seen, you know, people I think are genuine believers, like, who are just like praying for the region and like really like, and like on all sides and praying for peace. And I think that that might be like the only hope in that like part of the world might be the Christians who are there, like those, like the Lebanese people who are under persecution, or the Palestinian Christians who are like, and they're like the only hope for some of these broken countries are the believers over there. And so, you know, keep them in your thoughts and keep your perspective, you know, open to the fact that, you know, not just nationalistic ideals, but, you know, that, you know, there's a bigger group of people out there who with like-minded, you know, like-minded thoughts, and who are, you know, peace seekers. So, yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us, Ken. Again, check us out on YouTube and anywhere you can listen to podcasts. We're there. You know, listening on a podcast platform goes pretty far, but if you want to engage with us, best to do so on YouTube in the comments. Let us know how we're doing. Check out the store. It's there, you know. If there's anything that you think we should add, let us know. But yeah, till next time, Ken.
Thanks for tuning in. If you love this episode, drop us a review. If you have qualms or comments, leave us a voicemail on our website. While you're there, check out our latest news, merch, and deals from our sponsors. Till next time, Ken.